Welcome to Voices of Inspiration. I'm your host, Amelia Old. Today, we embark on exploration into the unconventional journey of a New Zealand based writer and digital nomad. In 2017, at 33, Lisa Jansen made a courageous decision, bidding farewell to a thriving career, seeking a life unburdened by societal expectations. For 5 years, she ventured through the enchanting landscapes of New Zealand, dwelling in her camper van and unraveling the mysteries of existence. This remarkable odyssey is chronicled in her third book, Life Done Differently: One Woman's Journey on the Road Less Traveled. She's also the author of One Size Does Not Fit All: Discover Your Personal Path to a Happier Life, and The Nomad's Ultimate Guide to New Zealand. Beyond the covers of her books, she also shares captivating narratives on her blog, lifedonedifferently.com. As we immerse ourselves in this conversation, I'll let you in on a little behind the scenes moment. Towards the end of the interview, we did encounter a minor hiccup on the video side, but all of the audio is preserved, and you will not miss any of Lisa's profound insights. This is just the unpredictable dance of technology. Join me in extending a warm welcome to our guest, Lisa Jansen.
Everyone has a story to tell. We connect and relate to one another when we share our stories. My name is Amelia Old, and I am your host of Voices of Inspiration. Join me as I share stories of friends, family, and strangers from my everyday life and travels. You will laugh, possibly cry, or walk away feeling connected more than ever to those around you and ready to be the change our world needs. Everyone has a story to tell. What's yours?
I really appreciate you joining me today. I know that it is Saturday morning for you, so you're a day ahead, and I appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday morning to be with me.
No worries at all. And thank you so much for having me. Really excited to have a chat.
So, we were just talking about yesterday for you was the anniversary of where this journey for you began. So, first of all, I want to say congratulations because it's an incredible story that I can't wait to share with everyone. But it's been 6 years since this started. Can you take us back to the moment when you decided to leave your job and explore life beyond the conventional path of a marriage and kids and mortgages and things like that?
Yeah, happy to. And it was a bit of a process that sort of, it took a few months, but basically when I was 33 back in 2017, I kind of, got to this point in my life where everything was really great. I had a great job and I had great friends and great hobbies and life was good. And I just started to ask myself, like, okay, what's next? I think something a lot of us do, somehow we're always seem to be like, oh, what's next? What's next? And of course, being 33 at the time, looking around me, what I saw was everyone was getting married or, had already gotten married, started to have kids, buying houses, really career focused. And it was kind of great to see that for my friends. So, I enjoyed being part of it for them, but it didn't feel like the thing that I wanted to do. And so really started to ask myself, okay, what else is there? What do you do with your life if you don't want to follow that traditional path of, marriage, kids, mortgages, careers? And at the time, I wasn't really sure if I definitely didn't want it or if I just didn't want it yet. But I just wanted to be able to answer that question, like, what's the alternative? And I think, a lot of us, when we have these sort of thoughts, the idea of travel comes up, right? There's something about travel that really, I think, sort of expands your mindset and your horizon and opens, your mind and your heart to other ideas. And so that's kind of where I started. So I was like, okay, I want to take some time out of my, busy career focused life in Auckland. And I want to just travel. And so initially it was supposed to be just a summer. So take a summer off work and I'm going to travel and I'm going to figure out, what I want to do with my life. And so that's then led to the decision to buy the camper van and set off for a summer. And that summer has now turned into 6 years. So
That's incredible. So, what did your family and friends think about this when you just sprung this on, like, hey, I'm gonna leave my life and just start anew?
Yeah, good question. So I live in New Zealand, but my family is mostly in Germany. My sister's in the UK, so there's a lot of distance, kind of geographically, which and it's been like that. So I've been in New Zealand 17 years now. Even back then, it was 10 years, and so they didn't have that day to day role in my life, and so for them it was I think, it was just, okay, that's just something she's doing. And again, because I said I was only going to do it for a summer, it was sort of easy for them, I think, to wrap their head around it. And similar with friends, I think, at that point, everyone already sort of figured out that I'm maybe, a little bit sort of looking for something different in life to most people. And so no one was all that surprised when I said, oh, I'm going to take a summer off to travel. And then when it extended beyond that summer, I think everyone just saw how much I was loving it, and what a great time I was having, and how good it was for me. And yeah, so I have to say I've been really lucky. Everyone's been really supportive, and I'm sure there've been some some sort of, oh, what the hell is she doing kind of moments, and they probably don't always understand my choices, but I've been very lucky that, my friends and my family have always respected them and always supported it. So very grateful for that.
Having that support is incredibly important. And also, I think that you're lucky that you have that support because, I think that in my younger years, if I had have sprung that on any of my friends and family, while they might not have been necessarily surprised because they're used to me coming out with outlandish ideas, I think that they would have been a little bit more concerned. What inspired you to choose that specific lifestyle, and how do you think it shaped your perspective on life?
That's a really good question. And honestly, I don't really know. Like the idea to live and travel in a camper van came out of nowhere. It wasn't that at the time I had seen, friends or family do it, or I didn't, even know that this whole van life thing was a thing on social media and whatnot. So yeah, it's very popular here in New Zealand. There's a lot of, the whole camping and RVing motorhomes a big thing. So that's probably had a little bit of an influence. But it was just one of those things where, I had spent months trying to figure out what I want to do. And then I had this idea and it just was right. When you just have that idea and you just know in your heart, like, yeah, that's it. That's the thing I want to do. So yeah, so don't really know where it came from. It was a bit random. But it's definitely felt right from the beginning. And how it's shaped my perspective, in so many ways. It's honestly been such a transformative journey. And, you know, from one of the first things I kind of, learned living in the van. So I went from living in a relatively modern house in Auckland, which is New Zealand's biggest city, with, lots of stuff, closet full of clothes and shoes and all that stuff that you have, right? And then I downsized from that to a little van and really only sort of the basics. And that was incredibly liberating, getting rid of stuff and really downsizing to only what you need just was incredibly liberating and freeing. And then that sort of made me realize how little I actually need to be happy, because, there I was, less stuff than I'd ever really had. And I was happier than ever. And life was simple and sort of I was focused on the right things rather than all these distractions that I used to have, living that kind of career focused life in Auckland. Um, and so that was sort of the first big mind shift. It really made me realize how distracted I had been in many ways before. And then having that clarity, yeah, was just incredibly and incredible, and really helped me sort of connect to who I am, who I want to be, how I want to live my life, rather than, just being distracted and just sort of chasing after things because everyone else is chasing after them, or society tells us that's what we should be chasing after. Yeah, and in so many more ways that it's shaped my life. Like I would probably spend the next hour just answering that question. So
What do you think that you miss the most from before?
That's a really easy question to answer now, and it's I wouldn't have said this 3 years ago, but now that it's been 6 years, um, it's a sense of community and belonging. So
Mm.
it's been so amazing to travel and to see New Zealand in a way that few people have, and anyone who's ever been to New Zealand or seen photos, like everyone knows it's an absolutely incredible and amazing place, and I've had a chance to see all of it and really explore it in depth, which has been awesome. But the big downside of living this way for 6 years now is that I don't really have a sense of belonging or community. I still sort of Auckland's still the closest thing to home I have, but even that isn't really anymore. A lot of my friends there have now actually moved on as well, and so I miss having that regular group of people around me. I also miss little things like being able to join a tramping club, or volunteering somewhere, or just going to that cafe down the road where they know your name and how you like your coffee because you come all the time, right? So that's definitely the thing I miss the most.
What are some of the rewards you've gained from your new lifestyle?
So many, and it's definitely so far the good stuff outweighs the challenges by a long shot. So I would say the biggest is what I already talked about earlier, the sense of I don't need a lot to be happy. And what that meant for me as a sort of extension of that is that I realized, look, I don't have to work 40 hours plus a week in an office to be able to afford the kind of life I want. So that to me is freedom. Time is freedom. And other rewards are a much better sense of who I am, who I want to be, a sense of a real sort of confidence and trusting myself, trusting my gut, doing life my own way. um Lots of amazing people. I've met so many amazing people on this journey and had conversations with people who I probably wouldn't have crossed paths with a normal life. Like, I think sometimes we don't realize how much we tend to surround ourselves with people very similar to us, and how that automatically happens just based on how you live your life. And then when you step out of that and you step into a completely different community, all of a sudden you meet people from very different kind of walks of life. So that's definitely been a huge reward. And New Zealand, I keep going on and on about it, but New Zealand's the best place in the world, and being able to see it in the way that I have, it's just been absolutely amazing. So many awesome adventures, hiking and paddleboarding and surfing and kite surfing, and just like seeing these amazing places. So it's probably more rewards. It's just, it's been such an incredible journey.
So, what is a typical week or month look like to you? How long are you in a specific area, and what makes you choose that area?
It's something that's really changed a lot over the years. So when I first set off in my van, I was really, I wanted to travel and I wanted to see as much as possible. So I'd often only stay in one place for, a couple of nights, maybe sometimes 3 nights, often only one night. So I really was kind of, I want to go there and go there and go there. And I would choose the places a lot based on where I hadn't been in New Zealand at that point. There were a few regions where I just hadn't been yet, or favorite places to go back to. I love the outdoors and nature, so I would often look at where are good hikes or good spots for kite surfing or paddleboarding, or those sort of activities. Where's the weather good? So it was all kind of very very loose. And then as time went on, it started to slow down a little bit, and I would spend, more time in one place. I'd travel slower. I started to house sit occasionally. So then I would have, sometimes 3 or 4 weeks, or even, 5 or 6 occasionally in one place, house sitting. And that was, I think just the initial excitement was gone. And so I slowed down a little bit. And got really interested in going to those really off the beaten track places. So that kind of became a big, attraction, big drive for me at that point. And then over the last year, it's sort of changed again, because last year I actually sold the camper van. And since then I've been a full-time house sitter. So now I move around the country often sort of every 4 to 6 weeks. I had a 3 months house sit in one place this winter, which was the longest I'd been in one place in over 6 years. And but yeah, so now it's where I go is very much sort of determined by where I can find house sitting jobs.
What are some of your favorite hidden gems that you've come across?
So many good ones. I love the kind of remote, off the beaten track places, and so I always like to drive down the long gravel road and see what's at the other end. And we're lucky to still have a few of those in New Zealand. So yeah, so many different ones. Like I love on the North Island at the very top, we have a place called Spirits Bay, and there is another sort of place up north called Cape Ringa, which is very popular. Lots of people, lots of tourists go there. But then you sort of turn off and you follow a gravel road for 45 minutes, and you get to this beautiful remote beach at the top of the North Island called Spirits Bay. There's the East Cape, also on the North Island, which is a really beautiful, more remote area. It's got the East Cape Lighthouse, which is the first place in the world to see the sunrise each day. So that's pretty special, I reckon, to go. And you can say it's like on that day, I was the first person in the world to see the sun. And then, yeah, on the South Island, it's probably even more remote places. There's the northern tip of the South Island on the west coast, just is super remote and just really beautiful beaches and hardly a soul inside. There's an area further down on the east coast of the South Island called the Catlins, which is one of those areas where there's so many walks and waterfalls and beaches, and so you can spend like a few years ago, I spent 4 weeks traveling, probably 120 kilometers. I don't know what that is in miles, but it's not a lot. So, it's just so much to see that you can really, take your time and and make the most of every day.
What role do you think that this time to yourself that you've had, what role has that had in your journey, both in terms of inspiration and self-discovery?
Yeah, interesting to think about that. So, in a way, I've always been someone who's been, I'm very introverted. So I'm very comfortable with, being on my own. And I have this really rich inner world and can kind of, entertain myself for days on end. And sometimes I look back and I sort of realize that the life that I was living in Auckland, which was very busy, every day I'd be in a busy office and a busy commute and lots of people and all these, influences and noises and people and everything around me. And I can look back and sort of realize that wasn't the environment that I would thrive in. Whereas the life that I live now, which is, quieter, fewer people, fewer distractions, fewer sort of external stimulations, I feel like I've become a lot more, a lot more me, and it suits, who I am a lot more. And it's really given me that opportunity to do what I, as so many introverts, do so well, which is, turn inwards, and spend time in your own head and spend time daydreaming, and being, at peace with that. And in a way, it's given me a real new layer of appreciation for the strength of being an introvert, because often sort of in the normal life, so I don't really like the term normal life, but don't have a better either, but it is very much geared towards extroverts, right? Especially kind of city life, and sort of sometimes when you live in that environment, being an introvert can almost feel like a weakness or an issue or something you need to work on. And stepping away from that and living a life that is really very well suited to introverts has really given me a new level of appreciation for the strength of it, for my ability to do things on my own and to not be held back by not having someone else to come along with me, and my ability to think deeply and reflect on my own and that sort of stuff. So that's been a really good way how it sort of shifted my mindset and yeah.
Has there been a specific moment or experience that you feel that's just had a profound impact on your journey?
Probably a few along the way. One, one that's certainly been sort of a massive shift in my journey was relatively early on. So at this point, I'd been in the van probably about 4 or 5 months. I'd sort of just gone, past the first summer and decided to keep going. And I was in this beautiful spot called Hamilton's Gap, which is on the west coast of the North Island, really remote and really beautiful. And so at that point, I had spent the last few weeks already sort of reflecting on my journey to this date and, the different things in life that had happened to get me to this point. But at that point, it was really just sort of, more or less random thoughts and ideas. And so I was in Hamilton's Gap, and it was just really peaceful, environment and space. And I got into a really kind of creative mindset, and without really intending to, these thoughts that had been in my mind turned into an outline for a book. And so this wasn't something like, I've always loved books. I love reading, but I didn't set off on this journey saying I want to write a book, right? It was just kind of something that happened because I was in this mindset. And so before I knew it, I had this outline just kind of came out of nowhere. And then that turned into my first book. And, I've since written 2 more. So I've now, published 3 books and write a blog. And so, I've now got this whole new life as a writer that I don't think I would have had if I hadn't, made the decisions I did, or at least not yet. Maybe it's something I would have done in my retirement or something. So that's, one example really how it's like had a massive impact on my life. And I sort of have this saying that inspired me very early on when I was still sort of trying to figure out what to do, which is, if you want change, you have to create space for it. And that's sort of about, if you want to change something in your life, you have to get rid of something else, because a lot of us are so busy in our day-to-day that if we keep doing what we've always done, then where is the new going to come in? Where's the change going to fit into your life? And so I've, believed that, if you want change, you have to say, get rid of something and create that space. And to me, this is like a perfect example of that, because I created that space. I took time out from work. I simplified my life, and that created space for, the creative in me and the writer in me to, rise to the top and make herself heard. And that led to, now having this career as a writer, which is really awesome. And I love.
It's really cool when we think our life is going to go one way and it just does a completely 180. It takes us in a completely different direction. What advice do you have for others that are navigating societal expectations and pressures?
There's a few things. So the first thing that just has been huge for me, and so this is something I actually did, in my mid-20s, so before I ever set off on this journey. But in my mid-20s, I went through a phase where I got really interested in psychology and personalities and values, and did a lot of work to get to know myself better. And at the time, it was really just something that I was interested in and, curious about. But I look back now, and it's just been so, so massively impactful and important in my life, because it's given me this, I guess, confidence to look at a decision and know if it is the right decision for me, and if it suits my personality, does it align with my values? And so that would be my first tip to anyone who's, having thoughts similar to what I had 6 years ago around, what am I doing with my life? And I'm not sure. And so if you don't feel like you have a good, self-awareness and understanding of who you are and what you value, then that's where I would start, just because it's, worked so well for me. And from there, my second advice, and again, this is sort of something I kind of learned by coincidence rather than intentionally, but start small. When I set off on this, I said, it's going to be for a summer. I'm just going to travel in my van for a summer. And if I hadn't liked it, I could have just gone back to Auckland, find a job again, and return to my old life with, I might have lost some money, but I wouldn't have, lost a lot. And I'm really glad that I did it that way. It really helped me to ease into it. It made it a lot less risky. It made it a lot less confrontational to other people. So for them, it was kind of an easier transition as well. So that's something I've learned and would recommend to others to consider. Can you make a small change? Can you time box it and say, I'm going to do this for a certain amount of time, and if it works, you keep going, and then if it doesn't, you can go back to what you've done before or something else, right? And then I think the third one is, just trust yourself, trust your gut. I'm so glad I did. And it was really hard at times because, I made decisions that go against everything we're told, everything we're raised to believe, especially as women, what we're supposed to do with our life and how we're supposed to feel about that. And I have so much respect for moms, and I know so many people who, have chosen that path and are so happy with it. And it was clearly the right path for them. And that's beautiful, but it isn't for everyone. And if you're that person and you want to, do something differently, it is going to be hard. But I think the one thing, I often say, I think in life, there is no guaranteed path to happiness, no matter what you do. But I do think that a fast track to unhappiness is not being true to yourself. So that's how I look at it. Like following my own path is hard sometimes, but, going the other way and doing something that isn't me just because everyone else is doing it, I'm pretty sure would be even harder. So, so I'd say people, go for it and push through the hard times. It'll be worth it on the other end.
That's all such really great advice, especially when you say, start small. I think oftentimes people, they want to do something, but and looking at the big picture is always great. I'm one of those that always has to see the whole big picture. However, sometimes it's okay to just look a little bit ahead of us and start small, because if we are looking at that big picture, it can cause you to get overwhelmed, you get scared, you'd say, okay, never mind, it's too much, I can't do it. So I think that's all really great advice.
Yeah, totally agree. And also, these sort of decisions, especially, breaking free from a normal life and traveling, I think, those of us who do it can all admit that it gets romanticized on, social media and other platforms. And the reality is beautiful and amazing and exciting, but it is also challenging and hard. And some people don't enjoy it, and that's totally okay, right? So you might think you want to spend 5 years or 6 years like living as a nomad in New Zealand, and then you try it and you realize actually it's not all that I thought it would be. So by starting small, you kind of give yourself an easy out. You just you just stop when you said you would, rather than keep going if you do love it.
So you've talked about this a little bit in your exploration and within your journey. What have you found to be the most fulfilling aspect of the entire journey?
Ooh, that's a good question. The most fulfilling, I think it is that opportunity to be me, to do life my way. Definitely. The other thing I would say, something that's been really fulfilling to me, that's like fills my soul and fills my heart, is having so much time to spend outdoor and in nature and in these beautiful places. Like that's definitely, whenever I'm having a bad day, just, go to a beautiful beach or a beautiful scenery, and I can feel, the energy and the joy and everything coming back. So that's another, huge part for me that's really, really fulfilling, for sure. Yeah.
Can you share a memorable encounter or story from your travels that really encapsulates the essence of life done differently?
Ooh, so many cool encounters, and I share some, in my latest book, which is called Life Done Differently, and I share the journey of the last 6 years, and the encounters are a big part of that, and how different people I met along the way kind of brought up different ideas, and thoughts. And one encounter that I think of still, very often is, I met up with a fellow nomad, and we connected over social media, as you do these days. And then we managed to meet up in person And at the time, I was thinking a lot about regrets. Some questions that other people had asked me had just sort of made me think about, what if I do end up regretting this? The choice to kind of walk away from my career and live this way, the choice not to get married and have children, all, those sort of things were on my mind. And so I met this fellow nomad, a woman a few years older than me. So, I say a few years, so she probably would have been a good 20, 25 years older than me. And we met, and somehow the sort of topic came up, and she shared that, she'd gone through a difficult time in her life a few years earlier where her marriage broke down around the same time that her kids left the house. And then a beloved family pet died. And so she kind of went, within a few months from being this mom of the home, and wife, to being on her own and having, lost like her partner. And obviously her kids were still there, but, they were living on their own and didn't need mom as much anymore. And so she shared that she went through a period where she struggled a lot with regrets and a lot of, thoughts about, I should have done this, and I should have fought harder for the marriage, and I should have, done more things for myself so that I wouldn't feel so lost now. And then I asked her, how did you get out of that? Like, how did you stop being, stuck in that thinking around regret? She realized that regrets are wasted effort because you can't change it anymore anyway, and that there's really no point in regretting these things that happen because the past is the past. And so that to me was sort of really kind of woke me up and was really inspiring. And because she's so right, like regrets and thinking about the past, you can't change it anymore. So you might as well focus on the future.
So how has your perspective on success evolved?
Ooh, I like that question. That's great. So I actually have a answer on this because I've thought about this quite a bit. And I think for most people or society on the whole, right, when we talk about success, most people think about money, fame, titles, those sort of, I guess, tangible, measurable things. And you see someone who, has those, and that's a successful person to me. My mindset on this has shifted quite a lot. For me, success these days is happiness. So that to me is the ultimate, goal in life. And I think that most people would ultimately agree with that, right? Because I think most people chase after fame and money and titles because they think it'll bring them happiness. So I've kind of decided to kind of, shortcut that and just go straight for the happiness piece. And so for me now, a successful person is, someone who is really, happy and content in their life. And when I talk about happiness, really, I mean that content, overall life satisfaction rather than the joy in the moment happiness. So that's, a big shift in success these days is about being happy.
I love that. So what projects or adventures are on the horizon for you?
So I've been thinking about that a lot lately, actually. And I am sort of at a point where I do crave a little bit more stability and maybe, having a base somewhere. And I'm sort of resisting the settling down for real idea because that seems like a little bit too far that way. So I'd love to find a middle ground option where, maybe I have a base somewhere, but I still have that flexibility to travel a lot. And so, one idea that I'm thinking about at the moment is to maybe get a caravan and have maybe a more or less fixed base at, one particular campground, and then just travel from there. So I have that place that I can come back to, but I still have the flexibility and freedom and time of travel that I love so much. So that's kind of, something on the horizon right now. Maybe I do tend to change my mind quite a lot about what I want to do next. So don't hold me to it.
There's nothing wrong with that. So where can our listeners find you online?
Oh, yeah. So I have a blog and a website called it's lifedonedifferently.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Life Done Differently NZ for New Zealand at the end. And I've also just published my latest book, which is called Life Done Differently: One Woman's Journey on the Road Less Traveled, which shares the whole story of the last few years of my life following that path.